The assignment comes on a Tuesday. No ceremony. A manila folder, a name that isn't yours, and a supervisor who doesn't make eye contact when he slides it across the table. You've been with the Bureau 7 years. You've worked narcotics, fraud, one stint in counterterrorism that you don't discuss at family dinners. None of it prepared you for this. The folder contains a life. Not your life. A constructed one. 34 years of fabricated history distilled into a social security number, a driver's license with your face on it, a work history that checks out if anyone calls, and a backstory that will need to live inside your body like a second skeleton. The Bureau calls it a legend. What they don't tell you is that legends are expensive. Not just financially, though the financial cost is real and substantial and nobody in Congress wants to talk about it. The cost is structural. The cost is temporal. The cost is the 18 months of your actual life that you will spend performing someone else's. You study the target. Dale runs the chapter out of a county you've never been to, in a state that feels like it operates on a different calendar. He is not what the movies prepared you for. He is not dramatic. He is methodical. He runs his organization the way a man runs a neighborhood watch, with potlucks and grievance and the particular warmth of people who have decided collectively that their failures belong to someone else. That is the product. Not violence, not immediately. The product is belonging, rage monetized as community. And you cannot infiltrate a community from the outside. You have to become a member. That is the first and most expensive line item in this operation. The Bureau moves you into a rental 3 miles from Dale's church. A church. That detail matters, not because of the theology, but because of the access structure it creates. Churches don't have org charts. They have trust hierarchies built on shared meals and eye contact and the slow accumulation of presence. You can't buy your way in. You can't network your way in the way you would in a corporate environment or a criminal syndicate where money talks a language everyone understands. Here, the currency is time, shared hours, shared tables, the willingness to sit in a folding chair next to a man who would destroy everything you believe in and nod when he speaks because your job, your federal mandate, is to let him keep talking. This is the normalcy trap. It is the most underanalyzed cost in domestic infiltration. Organized crime has a logic to it, a hierarchy you can map, a profit motive you can follow like a thread through a dark room. Hate organizations don't run on profit. They run on something older and more durable than money. They run on identity, on the particular economics of men who need an explanation for their position in the world that doesn't require looking inward. You're not trying to follow money. There is no money. The entire operation generates zero revenue. What it generates is loyalty, and loyalty is harder to infiltrate than a balance sheet because loyalty doesn't have a paper trail. Loyalty lives in the room, in the handshake, in the moment when Dale looks at you across a folding table and decides, for reasons that have nothing to do with your legend and everything to do with his gut, that you are one of them. That moment takes 4 months. 4 months of showing up, of eating bad food and saying the right nothing and laughing at the right moments and knowing when to be quiet. The psychological cost of this cannot be entered into a spreadsheet. Your handler asks how you're doing during your weekly dead drops. You say, fine. That is the correct answer. Fine means operational. Fine means the asset is intact. Fine means the government's investment in your legend has not yet been compromised. You understand, slowly and then all at once, that you are the investment, not the intelligence you're gathering, not the wiretap authorization that comes through in month 5. You. The years of training, the legend, the rental, the 4 months of folding chairs. Every handshake with Dale is a compounding return on a federal expenditure that your supervisors measure in intercept potential and threat mitigation. You are not an agent anymore, not in the way you understood the word. You are a deployed asset inside a fanatical social club, and your only job is to not lose value. The first rule of domestic infiltration: you are always more expensive than the target. Dale's organization operates on donated time and donated rage and a collection plate that barely covers the room rental. The FBI's operation to monitor Dale costs more in a single month than his chapter has spent in a decade. That asymmetry is not a failure of resource allocation. It is the structural reality of fighting an enemy whose primary weapon costs nothing. Ideology is free. Belonging is free. The conviction that history has wronged you and that violence is the logical correction, that is free. Countering it requires a man with a fabricated name eating bad casserole in a county that doesn't know he exists, and that man costs money every single day he's in the field. By month 6, you know Dale's schedule better than his wife does. You know which members are talk and which ones are different. You know the difference because Dale knows the difference, and Dale has started talking to you directly, not in the group, separately, after meetings, in parking lots. That is the shift. The target has begun to see you as a confidant. That is intelligence. That is yield on the Bureau's investment. That is also the most dangerous place you have ever been in 7 years of federal service. Because Dale is not stupid, and the closer you get to the center, the more exposure you carry. The wire is in your vehicle. The wire is in your jacket. The wire is the thing that, if found, converts this entire operation from a federal success story into a crime scene. And somewhere in the back of your constructed mind, inside the legend that has started to feel disturbingly natural, you understand the second rule. The operation doesn't end when you get the evidence. It ends when you get out. And getting out is a cost nobody budgeted for. The wire check happens on a Wednesday. Not a formal one, not the kind with a protocol and a chain of command. Dale does it the way men like Dale do everything, casually, conversationally, in a way that makes it impossible to object to without objecting to something. He puts his hand on your shoulder in a parking lot after a meeting, and the hand is friendly, and the hand is also looking. You have been in the field long enough to know the difference between a pat and a search. This is both. You pass. Not because the wire isn't there, because the wire is good and the placement is better, and because you have spent 6 months building the specific kind of trust that makes a man feel embarrassed for checking. That embarrassment is your operational insurance. Dale finds nothing, and what Dale finds instead is his own suspicion reflected back at him as disloyalty. And in organizations built on loyalty, suspicion of a brother costs more than it gains. He laughs it off. You laugh with him. Inside the laugh is the specific controlled terror of a man who just watched an operation nearly end in a parking lot in a county that doesn't show up in your legend. This is what an intercept point looks like from the inside. Not dramatic, not cinematic. A hand on a shoulder and a laugh, and the whole architecture of a federal investigation balanced on the particular quality of your stillness in that moment. Your supervisors will later call this a near miss. What they mean is the system's internal security protocol, Dale's instinct, his suspicion, the social pressure to check the person closest to him, nearly worked. His failure was not technical. He had the right instinct. His failure was social. He had already decided to trust you before his instincts told him not to, and by the time the instinct arrived, the trust had more collateral behind it. That is the only reason you are still operational. Not tradecraft. Emotional leverage. The intelligence that comes in the following weeks is substantial. Names, dates, a specific event being planned. Not hypothetical, specific. Location scouted, materials discussed. The kind of operational detail that converts an infiltration case from a monitoring operation into an active federal intervention. Your handler wants a timeline. Your supervisors want an arrest strategy. You are in the room where both of those things are being planned, and you are also still in Dale's parking lot every Wednesday, and his church every other Sunday, and his world in every way that matters. This is where the operations architecture begins to show its fractures. The FBI is running 2 timelines simultaneously. The field timeline, which is yours, which runs on trust and relationship and the slow accumulation of proximity, and the institutional timeline, which runs on prosecutorial deadlines and threat assessments and the political calculus of when to move. These 2 timelines are not the same timeline. They never are. And the space between them is where operations die, not from enemy action, not from blown covers, but from institutional impatience converting a long game into a short one before the short one is ready. Your supervisors want to move. You are not ready. That tension has a cost. The planned event accelerates. The decision is made to intercept before it executes. What follows is not a clean federal sting. Clean federal stings exist in press releases and after-action reports written by people who were not in the field. What happens in the field is a confrontation that goes wrong in the specific way that confrontations go wrong when the timeline compressed faster than the exit strategy was built to handle. A man is dead. Not an agent, not a civilian, a member of Dale's organization who drew a weapon at the moment the operation converted from undercover to active. The shooting is clean. The shooting is documented. The shooting is entirely legally defensible and also a catastrophic operational liability because now the investigation has a body, and a body means discovery, and discovery means your legend is about to be cross-examined by defense attorneys whose entire strategy will be to prove that the federal government manufactured the conditions for the crime it claims to have interdicted. That argument is not entirely wrong. That is the uncomfortable arithmetic of domestic infiltration. The line between a sting and a setup is proximity. You were 6 months deep in proximity. The third rule, at the level where operations actually break down, the state can become an accessory to the crime it's trying to stop, not through corruption, through process, through the institutional pressure to generate arrests on a timeline that serves bureaucratic needs rather than operational ones. Every month you were in the field, the operation was clean. The moment the institutional timeline overrode the field timeline, the operation became something more complicated. Not illegal, complicated. And in federal court, complicated is where careers end and cases collapse. The debrief takes 3 weeks, not because the facts are unclear, because the facts need to be arranged in the correct order for the correct audience. You sit in rooms with attorneys and supervisors and men who never left the building, and you explain, repeatedly, the sequence of decisions that led from a manila folder on the Tuesday to a dead man in a county that still doesn't know your real name. Dale is convicted. The chapter is dismantled. The press release is clean and confident and mentions nothing about the intercept points that failed, the wire check that almost wasn't, the timeline that compressed a 6-month operation into a 3-day improvisation. You are reassigned. Not as punishment. The Bureau doesn't punish operational success. You are reassigned because your legend is spent, and your face is known in a county you never want to return to, and the particular version of yourself that you built over 18 months needs to be retired before it becomes the version that answers when someone calls your real name. The legend cost the government more than Dale's organization spent in a decade. The operation cost you something the debrief orm doesn't have a field for. You don't have a word for it yet. You'll find one eventually. Or you won't. Either way, Monday morning comes. A new supervisor, a new folder, a new name that isn't yours. The machine takes another step forward. And somewhere in a field office, in a building with no windows, a first-year analyst opens a case file for the very first time. The badge says new agent. The badge always says that. He thinks this is about justice. He thinks the system rewards what you put in. He doesn't know yet what the system actually rewards, but he will find out. The file opens, the operation begins, and the machine, as it always does, moves on.